it's very interesting that Andrew spoke first using a lot of my text. I can say the same thing over again, just say it a lot slower. Not that Andrew was excited at all, but I promise I won't be controversial today any more than I normally am. And so that gives me quite a thing to talk about. Next week, SITLA will present a check for $64 million to the schools in the state of Utah. That will be divided up in a per school district basis and also on a per building basis, per capita. Now it's a little complicated in the formula that I won't bother you with that, but let me tell you that this year SITLA gave to the trust which is owned by the school kids of $2.2 billion. We're giving to them $32 million that comes from energy, of which $31.5 million comes from oil and gas, and 0.5 or $500,000 is coming from renewables. That's how important this organization, or Rural Utah, is. Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox last night said something that kind of set me in another direction. I had, for once in my lifetime, I shirked the opportunity of putting everything off until the last minute, and I actually had a speech written out. But Lieutenant Governor Cox put me in a direction of talking about rural Utah. I'd like to take just a small poll here. How many in this audience today lives in rural Utah? Would you raise your hand? Okay. How many of you used to live in rural Utah? How many of your parents either presently lives in rural Utah or used to live in rural Utah? A lot more. Let me give you a little history about the Utah legislature. In 1994, a redneck named Matt Johnson out of Cedar City was drafted or elected into the legislature. He started the Cowboy Caucus, of which maybe some of you from in-state have heard about. And it went very strong until about 2010, 2012, and then it's kind of died off since then. The power of the Cowboy Caucus, which was written about in the paper time and time again about the cowboys coming out of rural Utah and taking over the legislature, was only half of the story. In rural Utah at that time, or in the legislature that time, in the House and the Senate, there was only 22 of us that actually lived in rural Utah. What the papers failed to understand, or the news media failed to understand, that the real power of the Cowboy Caucus did not come actually from rural Utah at that present time. It came from rural Utah from people such as Orville Carnahan, Bob Kilpack, Don Davis, who were all raised in rural Utah. All together, when you went through and started counting the people that were either living in rural Utah or had been grown in rural Utah, there was 45 out of 107. That's where the power came from, was not necessarily out of the 22 of us or 21 of us that actually lived there. It was the history and the upbringing of people who were raised in rural Utah. They were raised in oil and gas or in mining or in agriculture. That's where the real power came from. That's where we're kind of missing the power today in the legislature and specifically in Congress. One of the things that SITLA is truly trying to do, and the backing of the board, is to teach their school kids where energy comes from. Now 95% of all energy comes out of rural Utah. I don't care if it's renewable, whether it's oil and gas, and for sure all the mining comes out of rural Utah. And yet it's not being taught in the classroom. As a matter of fact, mining, especially coal, is a dirty word, and the rest of society just doesn't understand where mining comes from, or the windmills come from, or the solar panels come from. They come from mining. One of the things we're trying to do in SITLA, and starts on October the 11th, I think, through the 14th, is called a STEM Fest. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, of which SITLA DOGM, Department of Oil and Gas and Mining, and also the Office of Energy are going together, and we're going to teach the kids what it takes to put a mine or an oil well in the ground, the permitting process. They're going to go out and we're going to have a map right there in the state of Utah and let them mark the town section and the township in the section in which they're going to either put that mine or that well. Let them take a core sample. We'll have it all worked up to where they can actually know what a core sample is. Test that core sample of what nutrients might be in there, whether it's the oil or petroleum, hydrocarbons, or whether it's rare earth minerals. Go through that process and then show them we can reclaim it. Over a couple of years, we can reclaim that mine or that oil well and teach the kids exactly what's coming through the power lines or the gasoline in their cars or whatever it might be, where the power is really generated. And it's not a dirty word, and it's something that they need to use. They need to understand that the hydrocarbons that they have that's being produced in their cell phones or their iPads or their computers, where those things come from. And that's what STEMFest is trying to do. Let me show you another thing. They have it on the play the 2 60-second blimps for us, and I'll explain where this is coming from.
Utah Energy makes so many incredible things possible, like our education system, our workforce, our livelihood. By developing our natural energy and mineral resources, we can invest in the future of our children and Utah. The treasures within our lands today fuel the treasured minds of Utah's tomorrow. Learn how you can donate to Utah's education. SITLA, the School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, funding the future of Utah. Every child has a dream.
I want to be a doctor. I want to work with computers.
We want to make every child's dream come true. That's why we put the children of Utah and their education first. Developing Utah's natural energy and mineral resources makes this possible.
Money from SITLA transformed my education
and made my dream a reality.
Learn how you can fund education in Utah by donating to SITLA, the School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration.
As you can see from the 2 60-second videos there, of which Crescent Point and QEP donated a vast majority of the money to help produce these two videos, to show the importance of what rural Utah and energy does in providing not only energy, not only the automobiles or whatever it might be, but also the jobs, the engineers, the welders, the hydrologists, the archaeological people, and it goes on as to the availability of jobs through you guys out here in this audience today. One of the things that you in this audience need to do is take a more active part in government. Government runs by those who show up. Let me give you an example. It's from the book. It's the Governor's Task Force Recommended State Water Strategy. Now, I know the 3 people that wrote this. They are extremely fine people, but they're off of the Wasatch Front, and only one of the 3 actually lives in rural Utah, and he did not do all that much in agriculture and mining. One of the things that upset me greatly, I am not bad-mouthing these people. I want you to know I'm not bad-mouthing them. There's only 2 paragraphs in this entire book that deals with oil and gas production and mining. And let me read them both to you. Drilling and production of oil and natural gas can have numerous negative consequences to water quality. Utah's energy industry has grown rapidly in recent years, providing economic growth and also creating greater potential for pollution for surface and groundwaters caused by spills and discharges of oil, drilling mud, production, and injection water. Mining. There are numerous mines and mineral extraction industries in Utah. Many mines and mineral production facilities directly impact the quality of local water bodies due to their location or the nature of other operations. In addition to mining Currently in operations, there are thousands of abandoned mines scattered throughout Utah, many of which discharge toxic or hazardous materials into streams, rivers, lakes, and groundwater. When they reported to the Water Development Task Force last week, the question was brought out very specifically. Why is there only a paragraph on mining, and why is there only a paragraph on energy? And why are they both negative? They were stammering pretty hard for words, but the bottom line is when they finally got their senses about them, went like this. When we first started this task force 3.5 years ago, we had 2 people from mining and we had 2 people from oil and gas. And by the time we got through 1.5 to 2 years, we were down to 0 representation from both of those groups. And so when we started to write this, we did not have their input. We really did not know their background. And so we wrote it from our perspective. I draw this analogy. I don't believe there's a single person in this room that believes that the laws put in place from the Washington Beltway, meaning Congress, those laws are written for either in clean air or clean water that are written for the western United States. Most of them are written for the eastern United States, where they have lived on that land for 200 and 300 and 400 years. And so I ask the question, if we feel so strongly that the laws written in Congress do not pertain out here in the West, or not pertain's not the word for it, that they are written to be more sensitive than we really need or understand out here in the West, then we in rural Utah, or the energy and gas and mining people, better take an active part in the legislature in the state of Utah when they start writing laws for a cover of the state of Utah. Our legislators are extremely good, fine people. I am not bad-mouthing them, but I am telling you they do not have the understanding of what you go through out here in rural Utah, or what it takes to drill an oil or a gas well or do any mining. That is up to you to teach them. And that's what we have to do. That's why SITLA is trying very hard to be involved in the STEM Fest. That's why we're trying to produce like the 2 little short videos to teach our young people that there's opportunities for job growth, and it's the future of Utah and the future of the United States lies in the mining and oil and the renewable resources that it takes to make energy grow. So that's why you see us doing some of the things that we are doing. I quite often, and so does staff, and by the way, there's lots of staff here, not lots, there's 5 or 6 staff members here. I haven't given them the cue to cheer yet for me, like other people do sometimes. That was a joke, by the way. And I thank them very much for their support. SITLA has, I would say, the best staff of anywhere in state government. They do a hellacious job to make me look good, and they really shouldn't be doing that. I would also say that SITLA is working very close with the Office of Energy and also with DOGM. Quite often we go at odds with each other on certain issues because that's what we're told to do. Not what we're told to do, that's our job description. Their job description and my job description or DOGM's job description do not always go the same way. But I can tell you all 3 organizations are working for the benefit of the taxpayers in the state of Utah. And for that, I would thank oil and the DOGM people and also the Energy Office for working very closely with us. Our young people, for the most part, do not understand the importance of what you're doing in this audience today or what your occupations are. I have always thought that the more generations we get away from either an agrarian society or a mining society or a timbering society, when I say mining, I also mean oil and gas, the further we get away from those original generations of which started America and progressed for 4 and 5 and 6 generations, the less they know about what makes the world go around. And I'm talking about our young people today. And I feel like it's our responsibility to try our best to educate them, to let them know of what you guys go through in order to put something in place so they can have gasoline for their cars or electricity going through the lines. I would strongly ask for your help. You can go to our website and you can find out more about the STEM Fest. You can go to our website and find out also more about what you can do to help us in educating your young people. I might be able to give you a sidebar. That's really not in our job description, but it's something that our school board, our board of trustees feel like we ought to be pursuing. Our number one goal is to make money for the school kids to put into the trust fund so they can have additional money for books, computers, teachers' aides, whatever it might be that each individual school building feels is necessary in order for that school building to be successful. I would strongly ask and I would encourage you to have that support. I would also ask that when you have a letter from either your children or your grandchildren that comes home and asks for volunteers for the committee that spends that money, that you get involved, the community council group, that you get involved. It'll probably take 3 or 4 meetings a year is all it'll take. But you'll have direct input as to what either your children or grandchildren are going to be doing in that school. And it also makes you much more involved and be able to offer suggestions to the principals or the teachers how they might do some things. It's a very good group. Each school district or each school building has their own community council. And if that principal is half what the money they're being paid, they'll keep you involved and they'll ask for your input. I might have one last thing to say here, is that I believe under the current climate affairs that we have in Texas, I'm very glad that I'm American. I didn't pay you, did I? Thank you very much. But that's exactly the same things we need to do, is volunteerism, is making sure government is responsive to the needs of the people in this room. Government runs by those who show up. With that, there's only one more thing, and that is Tyson Todd, happy birthday on Sunday. Thank you.